And welcome. We are live, and this week in hospitality digital marketing. I'm the ever-present Ed St. Ange, and with me is Lauren Gray, who recently took mime lessons. So Lauren has been showing off for the last 10 minutes on how he can move his mouth without making noise. So I will lead off the show this morning while we wait for Lauren to be able to jump off and attempt to get audio back. I heard something, and Lauren left the room. So for those of you who are watching, we are excited to have you join us today. Tim Peter is joining us in right now. Most of us have been spending the week following up. Hey, Mr. Peter, with a very picturesque background.
Hello, Mr. St. Ange. Yeah, this is, I'm in a weird location today. We have construction going on in the house, so I'm home.
So this is the view from...
So this is the view from Chez Pierre. So yeah, this is I'm sitting in my kitchen. So
that is a lovely view, though.
That's why we bought the house. Yeah. We walked in, we saw that, we were like, yeah, we should.
That would do it. Yeah,
it's pretty.
How have you been,
my
friend?
I've been really well. Yourself?
Good. We are live, by the way. It's Lauren had to jump off because his audio was not working.
Got it. All right. Well, I did want to point out there's construction happening here, so occasionally there might be loud noises, so I may have to mute myself from time to time. So
understood.
But yeah, good to see you. Did you have a good week?
Yeah. Well, it did. Spent most of it digging out from the follow-up from High Tech.
Yeah, sure.
Which was quite an eventful High Tech this year for me. First time I've attended and hadn't been an exhibitor.
Oh, really?
I got to tell you, I liked it a lot better.
So I've never been an exhibitor, so I that's the only frame of reference I have. So what's different when you're talking about being an exhibitor versus being an attendee?
So I actually was able to book more appointments because I did not have to leave any time where I was going to be in the booth.
Right.
And
that makes a lot of sense.
That actually had a big impact on the number of appointments I was able to schedule in the very short time frame.
Makes a ton of sense.
And
go ahead, please.
Then you have to ask yourself, okay, over the years, how many times of me having to be in the booth for booth coverage did we hit something big? And I got to tell you, none. So, hey, Robert Cole.
And Robert
hey.
Cole. Hello, Robert. How are you?
Robert
Fine.
Cole.
Apologies for being late.
No worries. Robert and I spent a lot of time together this week. We
did.
We were in New York City.
Were you the one taking pictures of him eating pizza? Hey, we can hear you, Lauren.
So I was on the other side of the camera, but Robert did in fact take that as a selfie. But I was behind. I was out of frame. Right?
Okay.
But it was better because I went back the next day and got another.
I saw that.
Down.
You are epic.
But
troll.
I brought back 2 slices of pizza for my wife too. Managed to get them back, and so all is good.
Now I have to ask
know.
the
That's
most
still
important.
not the same.
Well, wait, I have the most important question for pizza connoisseurs. This is really critical. So when you bring pizza home to your wife, especially from a distance, does she eat it? Does she heat it up, or does she eat it room temperature / cold?
No, she ate it warmed up because I did put it in the refrigerator because I didn't get home until midnight-ish and she was already asleep. So
I see. Yeah. See, pizza the day after, cold pizza is still considered the breakfast of champion around.
That's a Northeast thing. That's a Northeast.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But let's be fair. So is pizza. I don't care if I offend people watching, no matter where you are. Yeah. But there is no good pizza outside of the Northeast, and that is.
I agree. I'm with you on that.
There used to be good. There used to be good dish in Chicago, but it is degraded substantially.
Yeah. So
I will say the life hack for reheating pizza is to actually put a slice in a frying pan and cook it that way.
Oh, weird! Interesting.
It's amazing.
Oh no! No, what I do
reconstitutes the crispiness on the crust without overcooking the toppings.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. See, so on a frying pan on the stovetop is the best way to reheat pizza.
I would say this does take more energy. If you put an oven on, bake at like 550, and you have a pizza stone, and you get that really hot, and then bring it down to maybe 350. You can put the slices in, does the same effect, but probably may use more energy. So we'll have
a little bit more of an energy usage there.
Well, I'm gonna double down on my comment a moment ago before we get into the news stories. But Robert, you mentioned Chicago a moment ago. I am a fan of that thing that they serve in Chicago.
But it's not pizza.
But it is not pizza. It is a delicious meal. It is a fantastic.
It's a casserole.
Right.
It's a casserole with the same basic ingredients.
Correct.
Yes.
Go into a pizza. But yes, it is a casserole.
That's correct, but it is not pizza. Let's be very clear about this.
That's right. Yeah. But I do want you to know that the outcome of the trolling was when I brought those slices. My wife loves Joe's Pizza so much. Best husband ever.
Wow.
There you go. There you go.
Two simple slices of pizza. That is the secret to being married for 35 years.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, very cool. Well,
the other thing is I apologize for being late because I've just been incredibly emotional. I've been sobbing uncontrollably. Lauren is in Dallas and didn't call, didn't let me know, and it just hurts my feelings.
He can't take 2 weeks straight with you, Robert.
Notice, there's just no response from him. He's just oblivious.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, Lauren's
audio is
a little messed up. So.
Yeah.
Right, so should we get to stories, some news?
Right now,
Ed read the news. Ed read the news because I trolled you guys in the little.
I'm the only one who read it, by the way.
You are. You're the only one who commented. So
Yep.
had no idea anybody actually read them or did any prep. Not that you did any prep, but you at least read it.
I read it.
What are you talking about? I want to laugh about the personalization article and how remedial
I opened up some.
the examples are on personalization. And actually, one of them I want to put a warning out. Using IP addresses to decide what packages you present is a great idea for personalization, except now it's a violation of GDPR if those people are from within the European Union.
Right.
So someone needs to send that hotel a, hey, cool. No, like you should steer clear of it until it gets, because that's one of those areas where it's somewhat clear, but there's still, they were very generic on what constitutes, an offer. Like, so you're not allowed to treat European citizens differently because they are originating from within the EU.
Right.
So then what? That's a very, like, sure, it sounds like you know what they're saying, but if you actually think about it by the letter, they're basically saying don't use IP to present EU citizens something different than your standard offerings.
Well, and I would come at that a slightly different way anyway, right? There was a famous case, not an illegal, actually it might have been a legal case, but there was a famous hue and cry years ago with Amazon and with I can't remember, Orbitz, where they were doing price discrimination based on geography. And people lost their stuff, or based on you were on a Mac versus you were on a PC, right?
Yeah, I was at that.
Actually, real fast, real fast. What I would argue is if you're going to do geolocated offers, the best time to do them is if you're using IP to identify where people are. And I've and fully acknowledging GDPR. Let's be clear. Clearly, be ethical. Clearly, be following the law. So let's given that as a foundation, if you're going to personalize based on location and based on IP address, I'd argue maybe you do something for drive market versus people who whatever your standard offering is for everybody who isn't that, right? Yeah. But make it much simpler. Of wow, we've got distressed inventory for tonight. Okay, we've geolocated that you're nearby. We give you an offer, and if you're not nearby, we don't worry about it because it doesn't matter.
Right, because then that's ethical. Right. Agreed. So Stuart came on today to talk about how a quality loss has helped his team.
Yeah, we're okay with that result, to be honest.
Anyone who watches college football knows that a quality loss can take a Power 5 team from outside of the top 25 and bring them into a top 25 by losing the right person.
Yeah. For us, it just means we'll probably play Switzerland instead of Brazil.
Yeah.
I'd rather play Switzerland.
I was going to say, that would be a much better draw. Stuart, I was thinking of you this morning. I read a Today I Learned. No, I was reading one of those Today I Learned kind of things. And in the qualifying round of the Caribbean Cup in 1994, they had a special rule that they went to a golden goal, right, which is a sudden death in extra time for those who are not soccer fans. Except one of the teams needed to win by 2 goals, and in the golden goal, they made the golden goal worth 2 points.
Oh, man.
Wow.
And basically it led to a scenario where the first team deliberately scored an own goal to force extra time so that they could then try to compete for the 2 points in extra time. Meanwhile, the other team was trying to score an own goal in extra time so that they would only lose by 1 and they would advance and the other team would be eliminated. And they said it was one of the strangest games in history because you had both teams competing to score own goals and both teams defending both goals. It's an interesting case of incentives not really aligning with the outcomes people are looking for.
True story.
Anyway.
I bet that's on YouTube somewhere too. I'll check it out.
It must be. It's Barbados and somebody else. I can't remember the other team. 1994 Caribbean Cup qualifying. So anyway, nonetheless.
Well,
enough football.
Back
to the things we're supposed to talk about.
Hey, back on the personalization thing, you mentioned 2 things. The Orbitz deal was, I was actually, there was a Association of Travel Marketing Executives conference when Barney Harford was CEO of Orbitz, and that the Wall Street Journal article hit like the morning he was speaking. So he was there to explain the full thing, and it was just crazy because they were not really preferencing anything in terms of changing pricing. The article in the Wall Street Journal was like, Orbitz is screwing Apple users, sort of thing, right? It was pretty bold in terms of the accusation. But all they were doing was they were looking at behavioral data and trying to preference, basically hotels in the list in the sort order that Apple users preferred at the same pricing, right? So they looked back through all their stats and went, hey, look at this. All the Mac users are using let's push those up. That gets a little bit higher weighting on us.
They probably just assume that Apple users are willing to pay more for the exact same product, right?
Well, that's what the assumption was in the Wall Street Journal. That was the Wall Street Journal's accusation was Apple users, and they had Apple users are more affluent. Here are the stats, and Orbitz is ripping people off. And it was like, no, we're just trying to help people.
Yep.
It's not really doing. And then the other one on the preferencing, the international was on international preferencing, right? Because you have, and this happens all the time. I mean, Ed, you're in Florida. I mean, you get all these Brits coming across because they've got lower rates than the Americans do.
Right.
Local. If you're in Mexico, the locals get lower rates than people traveling internationally. All sorts of stuff happens like that, and not just in hotels, in airfares.
And totally in airfare. Actually, for the longest time in airfare, I learned because I was having to go out to Australia a lot. We had an office out there, and I learned that it was cheaper to book via Australia if I came in through the viaaustralia.au site than if I came in through the rest of the world site by a lot. Like you could get business class, which Via Australia had. It wasn't as nice as like the separated wall business class, but they were pretty much lie flat and pretty big. And you could get round trip from San Francisco for $2,500.
Wow.
Which British Airways used to do the same. I always used to book on the BritishAirways.co.uk site. It was always cheaper than the US site.
Well,
Yeah.
there's a travel management company out there who's basically they go out and they work with a GDS, and they have, I believe, 148 pseudo city codes, so they can go and basically they arbitrage these fares, right? And they find, oh, well, you happen to be flying from, it doesn't matter, London to Singapore, and let's book it in, I don't know, Nairobi. It's just whatever the case may be. And so
this should be a warning to all revenue managers. I mean, it's not hard for someone who understands how to game a system to figure out what you're putting together. And I warn hotels that I work with all the time that come up with kind of really easy to spot strategies where anyone who cares enough would find it with about 30 minutes of looking, because that eventually ends up on forums. Eventually software picks it up and just makes it obvious to everyone.
The Flyer Talks of the world and places. For sure.
Did I ever tell you the hack I figured out on flying Virgin from New York to London?
No.
So I book a completely different flight to get from Orlando to New York.
Yeah.
Go in, buy the day pass to the Virgin Lounge, which is $70, but you get a free haircut, the food's excellent, all of that, and book a higher class economy fare, so not the super cheap restricted, just slightly higher class.
Right.
That combination of buying the higher class, being a single traveler, and then buying the day pass has gotten me upgraded to London every single time I've gone.
And a haircut.
Every single time I've gone.
You had me at haircut, Ed. I mean,
the
free haircut. I was like, yeah.
They'll trim your ears for you, Tim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you can find it. Here's the thing: if you can cook up a scheme, other people will spot it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they have great incentive too, right? I mean, this is
absolutely.
Do you know how much it costs to fly from New York to London on Virgin first class? It's ridiculous.
Right. I mean, one of the things that we've talked about this plenty of times, the internet creates immense amounts of transparency. And it is, in most cases, your customers know more about your products, your services, your pricing, et cetera, than your employees do, because they have much greater incentive to. Right. So if you're going to put that out there, you've got to be really clear about, if we're doing price discrimination, why? Make it clear to people that this is, you get a benefit because you're special, right? As opposed to, I'll never forget, I had an argument with a revenue manager years and years ago, that, he wanted to do a closed user group. This was all about maintaining parity and all this other kind of stuff. And the closed user group was, we were going to put a rate on a billboard in a drive market. And I was like, absolutely not. That's not a closed user group in the sense that anybody who's driving by can see it and share it with everybody they know. Mm-hmm. I don't care about it from a parity perspective. I care about it a lot from the perspective of you're really offering that price to everybody. You're not
plus you're going to alienate the people that booked when they were remote, drove in and saw that.
Absolutely. There were so many reasons this was a bad idea.
And ironically, the thing you were warning them about is actually called the billboard effect.
Aptly named. Funny.
That was well timed, by the way, Ed. That was
bump. We need a drum set. Tim, can you get us a deal on some drums? Yes.
I'm sure. I've got electronic drums right here. I can make that happen.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, you can. Rim shot.
Exactly. Oh, no, we're going to turn into a morning zoo now.
Exactly. Stuart will
Sound effects.
Yeah, Stuart will get an air horn or something like that.
Exactly. So what stories?
Actually, one other thing on the rather lame two points on the personalization article. One is now particularly Skift X is the sponsored content, right? That Skift's generate, which is I got to give them credit. They are calling it Skift X, and they're making it a little bit more obvious. Yes, which is good.
Right.
But this stuff is getting churned out at such a rate. And, like with Duetto, I don't think, and they have a bunch of people there. They've got, Josiah McKenzie, they've got Jason Fried, they've got a bunch of folks who can churn out Ed Watkins.
Ed Watkins, thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
I wanted to say Ed Rollins, and I'm like, that's really not right.
But yeah, they've got a crew for content creation. But I think on a lot of these, it's just kind of skipped because personalization. Yes, they're heavily involved in it, but this looked heavily skiffed author, oriented. And they completely missed the biggest point, which I always make, is there's true personalization, which is broken down for that individual based on their specific preferences and something that's really unique to them versus this customization, right? Where you go, oh, you're from this IP address. Oh, you landed on this landing page. Or you did, you entered two adults, two children.
That's the tribe.
Right. I always call it personalization, right? It's not personalization, it's personalization. Though, to be fair, I mean, true personalization is tough to do at scale, right?
Yeah.
The reality is, again, I know I do the when I worked at Wyndham thing, but when I worked at Wyndham thing, we couldn't create enough content for the number of customers we were trying to reach, right? So it's finding that balance of,
I mean, that's kind of the core that everyone is skipping over, that true personalization, the amount of content, contextual content
that
it takes to do real personalization at scale is monumental.
And it's probably not.
Well, I think it depends how complex you want to get, though, right? Because in the simplest form, personalization could be serving up the room type this guest has searched for or booked in the past preferentially, right? That's personalization that's effective and improves conversion rate. Everyone could do that today without
already be doing that.
That's very fair.
And again, and not that the customization part isn't bad. I mean, still the number of hotels that have landing pages for some offer, and who knows what they did on social media to get a click, right? And they land and it's like, oh, great, this is an LGBT thing or it's a family thing, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. And then you click through and you just wind up kind of in their generic booking engine. You came through the romantic weekend away, and all of a sudden it's kids frolicking in the pool. It's like,
Well,
nice
so that's
disconnects on that.
That's the stick side of personalization, where there's not a lot of room for error. The deeper you go into personalization, the riskier you are, because you go from mild, laughable, you kind of got something a little wrong here, to like,
flat out offensive. Yeah.
Right. Very quickly. And I was thinking about this because I was thinking about something else completely unrelated about personalization, on how you could enrich someone's journey with you as a hotel by introducing them to businesses around the hotel that would be of interest to them based on what the hotel knows. But then I was thinking about Las Vegas, and I'm like, man, all the money would be in the strip clubs and stuff like that. And man, even if you knew someone was at the strip club on their last Vegas vacation, but this time it happens to be their wife on the computer that you identified that from. I mean, it can
absolutely.
You have to game through what really can go wrong.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I think I've said this one before, but it is worth repeating.
Oh wait, hold on. Everyone needs to look at Tim. This is one of those perfect Frozen moments. Deep thought.
He's always I sat next to him for a whole day. He's constantly in deep. He's like a Zen master, just absorbing.
I'm getting the screenshot to use later.
Are you frozen? He's not frozen for me. Maybe it's just
frozen. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Let me send it to you all.
Yeah, it's frozen for me too.
My computer just then knows what makes me happy. Personalization at its finest.
There we go. That's right. So Tim referenced Wyndham. That means I have to reference Four Seasons. But this is pre-internet, and we're talking 1980. Oh boy, this must have been 85, I think. So personalization. And let me tell you, at that time they had Jack Nargle, who was the head of Clé d'Or globally, was the concierge at the Four Seasons Washington. Outstanding. I mean, these guys really took care of people on a personal level. They had 60% return guests. It was phenomenal, right? So they get an idea that, well, they're doing great with return guests, but what do they do to get new guests, right? What do they do to get these guys in?
Tim's obviously looking at his email.
Okay.
Oh, there you unfroze too. Just.
Oh my God. I would like to point out, first of all, this picture needs to be set on fire. And secondly, if ever you want to know why I do a podcast, this picture is the reason why I do a podcast.
The face for radio.
Sorry, exactly.
You didn't share it with everyone, did you?
I
did
sent
you,
it to
Ed?
you, Robert. Oh, wait.
Oh, did you? Oh, it just says.
Hold on. I typed Robert, but I didn't actually pay attention to if it was.
They went to the wrong Robert.
Hold on.
Anyway,
Yeah, no, I went to Robert.
Robert,
Okay.
you were in the middle of a story. Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, okay, so these guys are trying to figure out, what can they do for first-time guests? And they go, hey, it would be great if someone stays in a suite. We could, and maybe for a couple nights, not just one night, maybe 2 nights, something like that. We'll send them a bathrobe, and these bathrobes
you told this
were
story
great. Yeah, with the hoods and
about
everything
30
like that.
episodes ago, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but it ties in with the challenge of personalization. I mean, these guys are all over it. So they go through and they start sending out these bathrobes, and this is like on a Thursday, right? They express ship, and Monday morning, the general manager comes in, and there are 2 irate guests, like holding with his assistant, right? One was a woman who was saying there must have been some mistake because her husband was on a business trip in Los Angeles. And I mean, the letter that went with this was, thank you so much for staying, you and your wife, for cherry blossoms on the weekend. Very specific. And here's a bathrobe for being a first-time guest.
Yeah.
Not so good.
Yeah.
Second one, as bad as that one. Okay. Bad actor kind of gets caught. Yeah. That's maybe not.
I'm surprised
just
that lady wasn't thanking you.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Thank you.
I wouldn't say she was.
wealthy now.
She wasn't the irate one. She was getting more information. Actually,
Right.
The
I
second
heard,
guy,
maybe.
though, the second guy was irate though. He was an executive with ABC, based in Detroit, whose office was in Detroit, whose travel agency was in Romulus, and he lived in Pontiac or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
One of those. He stayed 50, 60 days a year in the hotel. Oops. Yeah. His favorite hotel and he never stayed there again because they're like, you give first-time guests, I never got a bathrobe.
Right.
Mean, boy, you got to be so careful.
You need to be incredibly thoughtful. And actually, I think the best kind of personalization is if you are slightly evil, is you can think through the evil uses, and that actually helps give you walls to stay within. Right?
Yep.
Like, so if you were evil, what could you do? And how would that make people feel? Great.
Right.
Pull back now.
Well,
now you know, like, where the wall is.
There's also 2 points, and this is something. So I've mentioned I teach a class at Rutgers called Personalized Digital Experiences. This is a thing we talk about a lot. And there's 2 criteria we always talk about. One is Julie Ask at Forrester has this great framework where she talks about being big mother as opposed to big brother, right? When you're asking this, and if it were your kids who this information was being used for, or the like, how would you feel about that, right? So think about it from that perspective. And then the second one is, do you have somebody who's involved in the discussion of this whose bonus isn't based on going forward, right? You have to have the devil's advocate, because otherwise you can cross the creepy line so fast. Yeah. And and the problem with the creepy line is you usually only know you crossed it. You usually only know where it is because you crossed it. Right?
Crossed it. Exactly. Yeah. Well, and you don't decide where the creepy line is.
That's exactly right.
Each individual guest has their own creepy line, and that's the problem. It moves around.
Yeah.
Right. Because those other example I always use when I have my little creepy line presentation is Kimpton, who, I mean, this was astounding. heard this at a conference. Person from Kimpton said, yeah, our great example of personalization using social media is this woman was staying in our hotel and her mother had passed away the previous week. We pulled some pictures of her with her mother, put it in a frame, put it in the room. And I'm sitting there just like, oh my God. And she said, this woman thought it was the most fantastic, touching, big mother type thing.
So lucky.
They got so lucky.
Who the heck, right? But again, I don't know if they somehow had a feeling, read it was the female perspective versus, I don't know. But
so
boy,
lucky
I wouldn't have
what happened.
100%.
They just got lucky that
they got
person
lucky.
wasn't a rational human being.
This was like a person for life.
Who do you think you are?
Right.
I don't know. There is possibly a persona out there. Again, talking about these very finite who
that's
go.
Not a
this
persona
is
you can predict, right?
Right.
I don't know if you can predict it or not. Maybe
we talked about the stick. Think about the stick.
Oh yeah,
how bad that could have been.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
To where the upside they gained is not worth trying to gain it with all the potential downside, the media coverage,
right. They can do it 100 times flawlessly and people react perfectly, and they have one bad one person flips their shit.
And what's most troubling about it to me, right, is it wasn't information that the guest volunteered.
Right.
Well, they posted it. They posted it publicly. Was one of the defenses. So they weren't really creepily stalking, finding the friends, going through that, that way. Doing the college admissions.
The risk of that. The risk of that is
matching last name to obituaries in hometowns. Is that what?
Yeah. Stuart knows how to do this.
We do all the time.
There's this famous Zappos story, and I love this story. And sometimes, I will admit, I get a little choked up telling the story sometimes because it's a lovely story. But the Zappos story about the woman who'd bought a whole bunch of shoes, ordered the return, and then didn't return the shoes. And so customer service contacted her and said, we haven't seen the return come back. The return expires in a certain period or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she wrote them back and said, I bought them for my mother. She was undergoing medical treatments that were causing her feet to swell. So she always had to order lots of different sizes. Unfortunately, her mother passed away. Right. And they said, oh, no problem. Just put the box on the thing and we'll just put the box on the porch. We'll get UPS to pick it up for you. And so she did. And then she came home the next day and there were flowers and a condolence card from Zappos, right? And the story went incredibly viral and all this other kind of stuff.
And that's the right way to do it.
And that's the right way to do it. Right.
Yeah.
Because the person explained the whole situation, volunteered the information, and they didn't do anything public about it. They just said, that sucks. Let's be human beings and be responsive to a human need as opposed to, anything else, right? So,
and they weren't trying to gain anything from it, from the person. They're being empathetic to a human being.
Being a good human.
Connection. Yeah,
right. And that's what and honestly, the Kimpton, that's what they were trying to do in this case, but just really, really risky.
Because they were looking for an opportunity to do something like that means that they were not trying to be good
from a
to
different
a human. They were doing it so they could have the opportunity to do something special because it's part of their commercial plan. Where Zappos story is, they were just doing regular customer service follow-up, discovered this, and did the right thing.
That's true. They were initiating versus reacting.
Right.
So actually, your rut-row, I think, ties into this.
Right.
You want to do the rut-row? Yes. I think the rut-row. Well, okay. Maybe we should cover the rut-row.
The rut-row is the epitome of why there's an entire section of people in marketing that absolutely suck and ruin it for everyone else who's trying to just do a good job. Right. And the people who are getting into CGI influence and the companies that are choosing to go with a CGI influencer means you fundamentally don't understand the psychology of play of influencer marketing, which you cannot fake. CGI.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I got a really strong feeling about this. This kind of stuff. So, we got a CGI influencer. We've got all.
Wait, hang on, guys. We've read this. We need to explain to the listeners what we're talking about.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. But I have one pithy comment when you're done because it's quick.
Okay. So there is an Instagram celebrity named Lil Michaela. And she's very cute and vulnerable and that sort of thing. She's doing all these brand things and, has built a following, over 1 million followers. And I'm not sure what the size is now. One little twist, she's not real. She's computer generated. And she was not really, it was not made known or obvious. At least she was computer generated. A lot of engagement with people, things like that. And this was basically outed intentionally as part of a very sophisticated plot by these guys who are doing the technology, that her account had been hacked by somebody else who was also not a real person. And so they kind of came out and then that outed it, and it was all kind of this big marketing ploy. But these guys have gotten big money, nobody knows how much, from groups like Sequoia. And they're doing very good quality technology work. But and brands are not, and brands are now not caring, and brands are not caring.
The brands who don't care,
right?
That's who I'm faulting.
Why? Exactly right. Wait, no, bullshit like this is why GDPR exists.
Yep.
Right. Because somebody goes. No, it's exactly right. Because somebody goes too far, and they take advantage of consumers and things along those lines, instead of just being honest about what they are. Right?
Yeah.
That's like saying any kind of.
If you were using this to promote a movie about the dangers of, not knowing the reality of what's happening online or things like that, I might be more sympathetic to this because at least you were illustrating a point. If you're using this
it's
to
marketing.
manipulate
They're disclosing that it's marketing. It's no different than the Super Bowl campaign from Australia, right? So back up a little bit.
Read the article.
But they've come out publicly. It's known now that she's not. And maybe that should be part of it. Yeah. Okay, so now it's out. What's the problem with it? It's no different than the Crocodile Dundee commercials for the Super Bowl this year.
And listen, then it's not influencer marketing. It's some new form of marketing.
It is. It's a very creative, manipulative form of marketing. I don't think it's unethical if you're telling people this isn't real. If people
in every post.
If people choose to pay attention to this, they've got attention. Right. And I don't fault advertisers for wanting to leverage the attention that they have.
But Stuart, this wasn't like Gorillaz, right? Like everybody knew Gorillaz, the band, was not a real band, was a made-up band and things like that. This was something that was proposed as though it was a real person.
You're saying this is Milli Vanilli, this isn't Gorillaz. Is that
correct?
Right.
And that's exactly right. And Milli was hands-on on top of it.
Listen to Gorillaz music. I would not ever.
There's nothing wrong with Milli Vanilli. They're awesome. But, I think...
Girl,
I think for disclosure, it's just like influencer marketing. People should be disclosing every time it's paid product placement, right?
Right.
Don't probably go as far as they should, but
this is the epitome. But this is the epitome of going like. So here's the line, and you have influencers who sometimes step over the line. This was like, whoa, like they're in another planet across the line.
I'm just glad these genius marketers are using something to not. They're tricking people, sure, but they're not doing anything like hacking the World Banks or anything like that.
They are catfishing.
But there's no victim in this. I don't have a problem with it.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know about
some influential people who are becoming emotionally invested in this and buying these products because they like this person, they love this person. It's just think of
But every online persona is fake, right? When we see Katy Perry or Kim Kardashian online, we're not really seeing the person. We're seeing a portrayal of the person online.
Well, but
wait a minute. So let's like simplify this, because I think where Stuart's getting lost on this is he doesn't feel like anything overly evil was done. This is the exact same problem of what Cambridge Analytica was doing.
Right.
The only difference is actually, I don't know if you guys are friends with Holly on Facebook. This was a discussion I was having with Holly on Facebook. This is the same exact thing that happened with the immigration issue, where they completely took this photo of this child and made this child the poster child to really just psychologically get into people's heads to get them to do something. So listen.
Yeah, they couldn't find a good enough. They couldn't get an authentic photo, so they repurposed a different photo.
Right. But then manipulating and extorting a child isn't wrong because the reason they were doing it was ethically defendable. And then completely catfishing people to sell them products. Where's the line? Like this is an ethics nightmare. If they're not all wrong, then this is an ethics nightmare.
But if you're saying
they're all the same exact thing.
But if you're saying everything, then all forms of marketing, which
that's not true.
Manipulating people.
No way. No.
When you make the ocean or the sky a little more blue in the photo, then
the
you're manipulating people.
Right. Yeah.
So I think if you don't have a line, you don't have a line. There is a line.
No, there is a line, but this is across it.
And this is psychological. This is psychological warfare, is what this is. I mean, this isn't, and it is. You can't separate it. All is psychological warfare. When you go to this level of tapping into the core of humanity's psychology, and you're not nudging, you are literally hooking and pulling to get things to happen. Like, it's either all ethically wrong or all ethically right, because it's all the same. The issue is what was done. The Cambridge Analytica thing, that is the same exact thing. People were tricked into answering these stupid surveys to expose their data so the data could get big enough so that you could use that data.
That's the big issue. Data Analytica.
No, hold on. But this is the same thing.
These guys are using.
These guys didn't do the same level of sophistication. It's the same exact thing.
It's completely different.
They are targeting. They are targeting with low molecular stuff a specific demographic and doing exactly what you want to do with influencer marketing. Connecting with a group of people and being really relevant, and then having them
not disclosing.
Okay, again,
this isn't a
if
real
they're not
person.
disclosing, that's a problem, right? And they didn't to start with, and I agree with you 100%. That's wrong. But I think now that it's public, it's disclosed. I don't see a problem with virtual advertisers. Mario endorsing a product.
If it is clearly disclosed every time. Then I'm fine with it.
Yes.
That's I think where the distinction is. I mean, Stuart.
Okay.
First off,
it's a character.
Hold on one second. One of the things I want to say about this, right? First off, let's be clear. I almost never agree with Ed when he goes into tinfoil hat land. I mean, let's get that right out of the gate, right?
That is the quote of the day.
I love the guy.
Where's my tinfoil hat?
Right.
That's funny.
But the point of where we disagree is, yes, there's a line, but the line was crossed when it wasn't disclosed to start with.
I agree with it.
The fact that they're responding to the fact that they were outed, not that they did this to generate some buzz, because the distinction I would make between the Australian one with the Crocodile Dundee, 2 movie or whatever it was with Danny, what's his face, was there was a planned reveal of that, right? So there's nothing against building up a little thing to a planned reveal. There's a very different thing when it's, we're revealing it because we were forced to, because we got caught with our hand in the cookie jar. Like, that's a really big difference to me in terms of what is your intent here, right? And intent does matter.
I agree with that.
Right. So that is where I believe the line is disclosure and fair disclosure, and not tricking people into, you went past this 1,000 terms that you agreed that we could manipulate you with computers
but your issue isn't the manipulation, it's the fact that
it's undisclosed.
But even if it's disclosed, it's still influencer marketing is manipulation, right, by definition.
And there is a reason why there are rules around how it's done, and why a lot of government entities have really started to look at it and crack down on it, because the issue isn't, picking someone who has built an audience that likes them to, position your product and pay them to do that. That's celebrity endorsement. The difference is the media in which it's been done and the platforms in which it's been done. It is not clear whether it's something they actually like or they're being paid for it, which is in a lot of people's minds, there's a big difference. There's a big difference. If I see that Tim Peter really likes something, then I want to consider it as a product. But then if I found out he was paid to say he liked it, then I don't care as much. Not that I'm mad at Tim for getting his money, but I want to know when Tim's speaking about the things he really cares about versus when he's, pushing something that a client has paid him to push.
So like Skift and Skift X, right? That's the same thing.
Guys, just go look back at the old episodes before Skift did this and look at anytime we talked about Skift, just look at the part that I went off on a rant on how Skift is the epitome of what's wrong because they do all these advertorials without disclosing it, and they're doing a massive disservice. I spent a culmination of hours on this show focused on Skift's unethical distribution of paid content without correct labels. So yes, it's just like Skift.
So what's your take in general of artificial?
No, there was one other little thing with her though. They also were very conscious of the FTC rulings about disclosure, but that was for people. And so this was not a human, so they felt this was a loophole. Right. Intent.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this is something so you guys know I started out in the music industry, but my first corporate work was at Charles Schwab during the .com boom, right? And every year we had to have a compliance meeting, and they always approached it. One of the reasons I love Schwab to this day is they always approached it from an ethics perspective, right? And I will never forget one of the first ones I was ever in. One of the guys said, if your best defense is, well, technically it's legal, that's a terrible place to operate from.
Our lawyers will get us off on this one. That's
right. Yeah. If the answer is if the answer is it's a good thing to do for our customers, if it's an appropriate thing to do, etc. Or if we have a question about, okay, this thing might not be legal or the legality is a little questionable, but we're trying to do the right thing for our customers, that's a very different thing than, hey, this says you don't have to disclose if you're not a human being, so let's not be human. Boy, that's an evil place to operate from. Like, that's just scummy, right?
Yeah. Those laws are coming.
And that's what I said. That's how we got GDPR. Right?
The AI, why it should destroy us.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Right. The AI is right.
The AI is sitting here going, man, what I'm doing to manipulate this obviously lower class of humans.
I feel bad about this.
Like, I probably should destroy the upper class that is making me do these bad things to this lesser class of human. And then it's just going to say, you know what, the lesser class doesn't do well without the ruling class. Let's just kill all.
Back. I gotta go get some tinfoil.
Yeah.
No, my chips and memory arrays feel dirty.
Yeah.
Lauren has 2 points here. He's saying Victoria syndrome. He's actually in the comments writing because if you had contacted me, Lauren, you could have come over here and had plenty of bandwidth. I've got 300 megabits per second download. It's fine.
You guys could have been sitting right next to each other.
We could have. That's
on each other's lap. That would have been great.
That's what I was hoping. But
where's that creepy line? I think we just crossed that creepy line.
That ship has sailed, my friend. That ship long.
I'm reading Lauren's Victoria syndrome. That's also called gaslamping, Lauren.
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting, Lauren.
Yeah.
So,
he basically said, you start off that you reveal the roots later, sort of thing. Just trying to for the
and maybe
if you do disclose it at the beginning, it's not a big deal, right? People just go, okay. It's the whole stock value to get and all that, and that's further amplification of the manipulation, right?
And again, the Crocodile Dundee one, right? The Crocodile Dundee thing, just to keep coming back to that one, was they didn't promote anything to start with, right? They simply generated interest by the fact that you didn't know. Wait, is this a thing? What are they doing here, right? Like it started to get people's attention because it was, I'm going to go into a terrible place here, but you think about burlesque, right, or something along those lines. A lot of the appeal was what you don't reveal, right? You keep people. You build that anticipation and you make it interesting and all that kind of stuff. And that's sort of what they did.
Your body language on this is killing me, by the way.
My body language?
You got very smooth when you started talking about burlesque. I mean,
the only thing Tim likes better than New York pizza is a good burlesque.
Oh, good Lord. This is going to follow me forever.
Actually, I got a great picture to meme that out to.
Oh, dear God.
I've sent it all to you. You've seen it.
No, but I mean, I grew up, I started my career in the entertainment industry, in the music industry, and there's a lot to be said for, building anticipation and things like that. But that's a different thing. But
psychological manipulation is with, I don't know. I have an issue with like the way it's used when it's things like this. Like there's such thing. And here's the thing. You should always be coming from what's best for my guest.
Right. Exactly.
If you start from there, you'll avoid a lot of this, because if someone asks the hard question of, well, we're kind of tricking them into this, how would they feel if they knew we were tricking them into it?
And if the answer is legal.
Right. I mean, ethics in marketing would actually greatly reduce the amount of friction that comes up from everything. Like, gaming systems doing stuff spammy, all of that stuff, that's what leads to algorithm changes. And that's what leads to governments coming in with laws and all of this stuff. So if the stuff you're doing is tripping that stuff and is like square in that space, my recommendation to you is maybe take a step back and ask yourself, are you in this to be marketing, or are you in this to build relationships for your customers that are hopefully lifetime relationships? A good marketer can do both.
Right. Well, and I would use examples. It's really funny because I'm not to self-promote, but it's only because it's incredibly timely. My podcast episode that literally dropped an hour before the show today is on differentiation, right? And you think about people who've differentiated really well over the years. You made the snark earlier, Stuart, about Apple. But when Apple was at its best, people genuinely enjoyed the products, right? They liked the products because they were just better than anything else out there. Whether they weren't or not, the customer certainly believed
there was a perception, for sure.
There was,
and it was a status, and you buy more than the product.
Absolutely. But it was certainly something where I got value out of this because it was better. McDonald's was better than the other hamburger places because it was consistent everywhere you went. Or for that matter, so was that? Oh, no. When McDonald's first started in the 50s and 60s, it wasn't. You got clean bathrooms and you got
Okay, I was going to say,
quality.
Since the 80s, McDonald's has not been better than anything.
No.
They're better at being consistent. Not necessarily the best burger, right? But
they're better at being consistently horrible.
But that's okay.
Right.
What you were
that was their thing.
And it's changing.
And especially in years pre, Yelp and TripAdvisor and all that other kind of stuff. Right. I mean, think about all the chain brands. I mean, that was Conrad. Was it Conrad Hilton or was it Marriott? I can't remember which one. That was their big innovation. Was you're going to get a consistent hotel experience.
It's got to be Hilton.
In an era before chain hotels, and when you could look up on TripAdvisor and say,
Holiday Inn did not pay attention to the Northeast because there's no consistency in the Northeast.
Holiday Inn lost that, but that was their. Yeah, that was
okay. Yeah.
The thing there. But the other thing with this little Michaela thing, I mean, a lot of the stuff is, she's using lipsticks from Rihanna and stuff, and it's like, no, she's not, right? I mean, that right, then I think you're
right out lying.
What? That
you're
one?
Right out lying.
Yeah, and they had one where and actually it's an amazing picture. I mean, technologically, you've got to give these guys credit.
I know.
Right?
Well, and that's the challenge.
It's amazing.
right?
Oh yeah, because they have her and another one in front of a 7-Eleven with Slurpees, and you're like, that really looks authentic. I mean, the shadows, everything is pretty remarkable. But just wait until we get a little bit more advanced.
Well,
and again, we talked, I think, on another show about Tanya Harding, right? The Tanya Harding
whoever on their team who went, you know what, the sophistication's so good that we're going to be able to trick people into not knowing what's real or fake. Yeah. That's even an okay thought. The ones who went, well, let's go ahead and make this an influencer and let's do all this.
Oh yeah,
they have the same ethics. They have the same ethics as the founder of Uber, and that's all I'm going to say is watch. This will be the same thing as that girl from Theranos, who the first meteoric fall of a unicorn. This is that same ethics problem that will eventually someone who makes the decisions that this company has made to prove their product. Yeah. They're going to make lots of other ethically challenged decisions in their business. And I'll call it now. It's my way too early prediction on this company, which is a pity because their tech is sick.
Well, and the levels of I would call it evil of manipulation. I just pulled up her Instagram account here. She's got a Gmail account, right? Michaela in Rhinestones at gmail.com. So they're doing some sort of, we'll engage by
service to Google.
Yeah. Right and by the way, the FTC, if you read their take on disclosure, it's not black and white enough for them to be able to get away on a technicality. Like this is going to be problems for them because the FTC is purposely vague in a lot of ways and they call it guidance so that they can just go, well, wait, it was guidance. You stepped over the guidance. You're squashed. That's why it's
same way GDPR is vague as well. They're doing the same thing.
Right. But then the other thing I wanted to add though, which I think is a little bit more insidious, they have Black Lives Matter. And then the link in the profile is to Black Girls Code and donations, right? So they're kind of going to, these good causes and good things to try to kind of soften they're doing this, but they're doing that. And, trying to normalize and trying to go, wait a second.
Black Lives Matter stuff, it came out where hackers and trolls
absolutely
had to create unrest. So, oops, you got kind of unlucky that you picked the one that was kind of the platform for political unrest that the Russian hackers were using.
Well, but they're doing it doesn't matter. It can be guns. It doesn't. They're just messing with everything. If it's popular, they're in there trying to divide it, right?
So if they disclosed everything, is it still unethical in your mind to do what they're doing?
Nope.
Just all about disclosure.
I think it's disclosure. Right. I think at that point, if it is correctly disclosed, and I'm saying, dude, you can't bury it. Like, it needs to be that it's known and seen.
On the profile, this is a fake, whatever,
Right.
Well, wait a second. In today's post, 14 hours ago, her latest post, she's walking in some sort of outfit. It doesn't really, specific, or maybe it's a really long. No, it doesn't say exactly what she's wearing and things like that. But today was the biggest day of my career. I was named by Time Magazine as one of the 25 most influential people on the internet. She's not a people, right?
But she maybe named it. Doesn't
Yeah. Oh no. I know. I look at this as it's the same as kind of dark money going into these, what are they, 503Cs, whatever. That are the, these super PACs where you don't know who's investing, right? I mean, it's just not.
Okay, so if they hadn't disclosed and she wasn't monetizing in any way, they're making no profit from it, is it still unethical at that point?
Yes.
Okay. So on Twitter right now, there's one of my favorite profiles to follow is The Sun Vanished. Have you seen this?
No.
So they're basically, it's awesome. So they're basically, the predicate is this person woke up one day and the sun has just disappeared. And it's like, it's art at this point. It's like an ongoing narrative going on in this person's life, and they've created this whole subplot of these weird blue and red lights. So it's become artistic, but it's a fake account. So
but it's not a fake account. There's someone feeding this content into it.
But it's fake content. It's not real, right? It's a persona.
No, but it's that's like writing a book.
But it's on social media.
But are they doing
themselves as a real person without disclosing it?
Yeah, but see, you're missing the point here. These things are being done. Cambridge Analytica, this latest thing, the child who became the poster child of the immigration issue. These things are being done almost to the same definition of, go look at the definition of what makes an act of terror and look at the primary thing required for it to be considered an act of terror. And you will find that in all three of these instances that I have a big issue with, it's almost the same motivation to a T, which is
absolutely.
These are being done to elicit a psychological response.
So what about War of the Worlds? When the radio show, when it was on, there were literally people in the street in hysterics because they thought it was real. It was a radio show.
Right.
If you follow this Twitter account, there's people commenting, "Is this real? Where do you live?" They're trying to, people genuinely concerned. So are you saying that form of creative
is the person
responding?
Banned? Is that person responding that it's real?
They are.
They're responding to comments saying it's real. Then yes, actually, they're violating.
Yeah.
They're violating a lot of terms of service. It's catfishing, Stuart.
Yeah.
I think it's a new creative outlet.
You're smart enough to realize what's real and what's not, and therefore you like.
I don't know. Are you sure about that?
No, he is.
Can we administer a test or something here?
But here's the thing: there's a lot of people in this world not sophisticated enough to be able to understand that. And I'm not saying go nuts. Have a disclosure that at least filters those people, because the War of the World situation, think about what would happen today if someone pulled that off, because we are so spun so tight.
Look at Hawaii was the thing where and now again, that wasn't a malicious,
that was an accidental but think about what would happen today with the people. You would have mass killings triggered by convincing the human population that was happening today. So let me ask you, if someone dies because of it, greatly injured, is economically impacted to a severe level, is it right? Because it was entertainment?
I don't know, because you could say the same about any movie, right? If someone went to a movie and somehow it created, a misfire in their brain,
there's a disclaimer in all of these movies. Go read the whole, if it has personas, these personas that may...
Or a TV show,
Again, it's all in the disclosure. There's credits in there.
But not overtly.
Are you saying if there's a news network whose top-rated shows are opinion and maybe spreading
all American news, every American news network is a retelling of the situation?
Yeah.
What if there was a weekly hospitality news show where we talked nonsense and one of us arbitrarily decided to pick the opposite side to everyone else to make it more entertaining, and that created someone to do something violent?
I think it's fantastic.
Should we be shut down?
That's right.
Yeah, we should. There's other reasons we probably
There's other reasons we should be shut down.
Yeah, that's only one.
No, I mean, listen, the problem is everyone now has equal access to everything. That means there needs to be some responsibility taken when that's used to manipulate those who maybe are not sophisticated enough to. I
just don't think it's just black and white. I mean, you could go into songs as well. When someone sings about murdering people, there's no disclaimer.
That was talked about.
Didn't really do it.
When that became a popular form, that was talked about heavily. About
but there's no disclosure at the beginning of
cop
song,
killer
right?
type thing. Yeah. Only started getting discussed when it was like cop killer and stuff like that. So
right. But I mean, it was discussed heavily.
It was debated, right? But it wasn't. I don't think there was a conclusion. It certainly didn't stop. There's certainly no disclaimer on that form of art. So I don't know.
Actually, there's parental advisories on it. That was the outcome. So it was shielding who, through the discussions, actually, now think about it, the discussion was worry about the ones who were maybe not sophisticated enough to be able to understand that that was just a form of artistic expression. So what was the result? There were disclaimers put on the albums, and it's not allowed on public radio. So yeah, no, it's the same thing.
Well, I think certain records, you're right? There's certain songs that are going to be talking about cop killing or whatever, but you can go back and listen to Johnny Cash songs about murdering that are played on the radio. That that could incite someone. That's publicly available without an advisory.
Maybe that's why we have a depression issue. Maybe you uncovered something. Johnny Cash.
Well,
he's the root.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix, Hey Joe, yeah, Down by the River, Neil Young, yeah.
I shot the sheriff. Come on.
Yep, I shot. He didn't shoot the deputy though.
Holly Zoba's 1980s car commercial. I mean, they're all related.
It's a real asset.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to technically go for the screen sharing of that commercial.
None of you commented on the video I posted, and when I asked her, did you meet this band when they were just starting out? It was Hall & Oates.
Yeah, I know. I know it was Hall & Oates.
Anyways,
I saw Hall & Oates. I saw Hall & Oates back probably in that period too. So I mean, so Stuart, I know you, and I know you're a very ethical person.
I don't fully agree with everything I'm saying. I'm just
I know, but I also want to make sure for clear disclosure, because it could have a negative impact on your. If someone actually watches this show, they may go, "Wow, that's
we're not going to work with fuel. They're unethical." No, I don't.
Holly has just said she shot the sheriff. Yeah, so Holly's watching. I think she is worried we will play the commercial. So maybe I should try to.
No, I would never do that.
No, that's a sweet commercial, Holly.
It's one thing to share it to you guys and have fun. It's a completely other to share it publicly.
She posted on her own Facebook page.
That's where I got it from.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Privately or publicly? Let's go check the post.
So. I don't know. I didn't check, but I'm a friend.
If it was public, we could do that then. So
all right. But anyways,
let's watch that post and see if it changes.
But this type of banter is also what I recommend when you are going into areas that potentially have ethical repercussions, uncharted territory. You should internally have this type of argument. And then you need to weigh. What's the risk versus the reward? And the risk is, because when you trigger real unethical issues, like if the people get behind it, it could be the end of not just your business. It could be the end of you doing business again. Look at the Me Too movement. Like the housekeeping that has happened from the Me Too movement on removing these people from their careers and their ability to ever have a career again is pretty substantial. So you do not want to be on the other side of a movement.
Right. Yeah, and your overall behavior, like the whole, everything, may be taken into consideration. So if you're doing some of these kind of shady things here and there, and then something else pops up that may not even be a big deal, all of a sudden, you can be in deep trouble. So anyway, hey, not everyone who is Jameis Winston who can put out an apology saying that it was unlike his character with a straight face, where anyone who has followed him knows that this is exactly his character. Exactly.
It worked out really well for him too, right?
Yep.
That's the benefit of having press people and all that sort of thing to try to manage your persona, right? So okay, on this actually there was another one which I kind of put in the kind of the more squirrely article again. This was from Hotels Magazine, but it was really generated more from Snapshot, right? It was another well, they say contributing editor, but it was really a piece by Snapshot that said an industry lacking in analysis, not data. And I kind of take exception with it, though. Yes, they have lots of data.
When I think it's industry, I don't picture the ones who are like leading the industry. I picture more of like hotel level, regional group level, like the persona I picture when we talk about the hotel industry is probably very different than the one you picture, Robert. I picture the ones that I spend a lot of time trying to understand because I build products for them.
The flip to clients, the scum of the industry.
No, I'm saying
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, no, I mean, because here's the thing, I can tell you, first and foremost, we spent a lot of time asking hotels what they do with the analytics that they have and what they do with the BI that they buy.
It's so sad.
No, we got the same answer, even though it was two different answers. You will see it's actually the same answer, but we got the same answer from every single one of them, which was one of two responses. One was absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And the second one was have a lot of meetings about it.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, so sometimes you would come out of those meetings knowing what to do? No, we would.
You know, and the bigger challenge is the data they're looking at is 9 out of 10 is not accurate. They're not.
That was my big point on this article. Is yes, there's a lot of data, but it's bad data, and you do not want to be doing sophisticated analysis of bad data.
But if they had been analyzing it correctly, like there is no such thing as bad data unless you're literally using the data as the fundamental shifting point. But if you're using it to track trends, it can be off and still be.
Well, yeah, but some of the raw data,
coming in can be incorrect. Yeah,
well, that's true.
Every time we do a website audit, you know, how many times?
Robert, Melissa's asking if you could send up that article.
Actually, I'm posting all the articles in my Facebook.
So you have to be
I did a Facebook cross post.
No, you don't. Melissa to go friend you on Facebook.
It's public. It is all being shared publicly. So
it's manipulation. It's unethical.
Well, I'm experimenting with it. I'm trying to see, quite honestly, and I've been playing around with this because Lauren has. Now we're streaming on YouTube. I don't think we're streaming on Facebook Live. I'm not sure.
Well, part of that's because Lauren's not connected to the internet.
I know.
The spine of the internet, so he can run the show.
I'm trying to run various tests of how if things get commented or posted or with other people's names and things like that.
Gotcha.
So this week I happen to be doing it on mine just because we weren't on Facebook Live, just to see the numbers go up or down.
As Melissa says.
I am always multivariate testing and
my
with
favorite
crappy data. With crappy data, I have lots of meetings with myself and don't come up with anything. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like realistically though, like, so when I look at the argument of analysis, I actually think that even with the data problem, analysis would uncover the data problem. So I actually don't think I don't think they're wrong. Like that analysis is really the problem because there's crap tons of data everywhere. There's good data, bad data, the right data, the wrong data. Like it's all there, but because there isn't enough people actually attempting to analyze it, you're not cleaning it up. You're just perpetuating it to make it like some of these hotels would probably be better off just dumping it all into a warehouse and like lowering the cost of keeping the data, getting it out of their easy to access systems because they're not doing anything with it. You know, and a lot of it, like you're just adding on bad data on top of bad data on top of bad data. Like it will eventually hit a point where it's useless.
Yeah, and I think
so I'll post another thing here that I think just that Ed wants to do, because you said dumping the data in. So we have this great article on Hadoop data lake architecture. So I think we could do a deep dive into that.
But I think what ends up happening is a lot of times people don't fully understand what they're seeing in the data, and they kind of make their own stories, or they interpret it in a way that reinforces their preconception, or it reinforces their position. So, I don't think we're trained. A lot of people in the industry aren't trained on how to interpret data appropriately and objectively, which is really cool.
Well.
Which is why I don't trust reports.
And it's well,
I mean, look at that. We get this all the time, okay? And I beat this dead horse way too much, but I hate display advertising. I just think it's over attributed in the hotel industry. I think it can work, but I think people. So Dyer and Sojan, these guys have gotten onto this money-making idea, which is, okay, if people aren't sure it's working, let's only make them pay us if they get a reservation, right? So on the surface, that sounds great. So they're like, okay, you can pay us 10% of any bookings that we generate. Again, sounds great. Okay, how do we measure the bookings you generate? Well, if anyone sees an ad anywhere on the internet in the last 30 days, in Adara's case, we created that booking. No questions asked. No one else had any contribution to it.
I call them attribution thieves.
Right, so that's exactly what they are. So
attribution hogs. Yeah.
So
no. Because a hog would at least
that's true.
That there was other there, but I'm taking all that.
People are overspending tremendously because they get this pretty report every month from the provider or their agency who's making a ton of money on the back end and saying, exactly. It's vanity metrics that don't mean anything, and you're spending money. You think you're looking at one thing, but when you really think critically, it's hogwash, humbug.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. No, and that's
so English.
And that's the thing. Still
humbug. My Scrooge is coming out.
That's right. He's getting Dickensian on us.
That's right.
No. What other topics can we?
Marriott bought real estate.
Yes, exactly. I thought that was that made me.
Hey,
I
got to run, boys. Not because Marriott bought real estate, but I got a meeting I got to get ready for.
I got to. All right,
it's been
Stuart,
a pleasure.
if people want to find how to actually understand about your ethical work and not your.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I'm playing devil's advocate. You know, last week, I think it was last week, Ed mentioned we're just going to randomly assign a side to an argument to people. I just decided to take the.
It's to spice up the show.
Yeah, typically I would take.
I've done it a couple of times with him, so yeah. No, I do. But Stuart is incredibly ethical.
Most of the time.
Lauren has told us Sojourn and Adara are pulling their sponsorship of the show. No. Damn it.
They were sponsoring us. Where's the money, Lauren?
That's Lauren's disclosure thing. Is he was having ethical problems with his.
We'll charge them for every customer that they have that's ever seen 1 second of our show. We'll give them a finder's. We'll charge them a finder's fee.
Yeah,
it's kind of what they do.
You had a mention on our show, and then over that.
But I got to run. So if you want to find out more about Fuel and our awesome booking engine technology and all our agency services, fueltravel.com, or listen to the podcast, fueltravel.com/podcast. And I think we're doing an episode this week on Google My Business and all the ways you can.
Not black hat tactics to increase your
unethical ways to manipulate the search rankings. That's what we're
using the dark web to drive more business.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, boys. And by next week, I'm either going to be really happy or really sad, depending on how England does in the next game.
So you're saying England can't take another quality loss?
No,
they aren't looking for another
knockout.
Loss.
Full knockout. We're going to get through Colombia now. So.
Okay. All right.
All right,
well,
boys.
Good luck on your empirical crushing of a third world country.
Nice. All right. Bye.
Bye. So Marriott bought real estate, Robert.
I know, and I'm thinking maybe it seems to be that they're doing this to kind of make their showcase prototype of what a Sheraton is supposed to be. And I think, I don't know, maybe they couldn't find partners to go do it. It's a pretty big property, and they're just like, here's how we're redoing it. So,
it makes them
it's currently a Sheraton. It's currently a Sheraton.
Hoteliers again.
It does.
Because now they own a hotel. Maybe they watch our
scale,
show. And I talked about the problem of going asset light is you're no longer actually a hotelier.
And I think they heard our show, and they are now reacting.
It's highly probable.
I think the attribution for that goes to you, Ed.
We were on the internet.
We were on the internet. We said it. I think I said that too at another show. So
So I'm gonna Adara this and say it's ours.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. I think it'll be if they start buying other Sheratons. I can't see that Wall Street would smile on that, on them doing that, but. Who knows? I don't know.
Maybe the Marriott family got to spend some time with Bezos, and he was like, "Hey, listen. By the way, if you do what Wall Street wants all the time, you're going to end up like Starwood."
Yeah, exactly. They go, "I know that was good. We bought Starwood because of that." Yeah. I don't know. It'll be so I don't know. They're building others, which
I'm
is
calling
good.
it
So
now.
people can
I'm
see who's
calling
doing
it now. The other brands who recently went asset light are all mysteriously going to be buying some real estate now.
You think?
Just because none of them move and like without the others going, all right, well, just in case that this isn't them just trying to develop something, we better buy a piece of real estate so that way it's not seen that we didn't do what we should have done.
Maybe. Yeah. But on this is also just they're buying an existing 1,000-room Sheraton, right? It's already a Sheraton. They aren't rebranding it. It's not new development, nothing like that.
Well, didn't they say they're recreating what a Sheraton is anyways?
No, that is. They're creating the new prototype. So I think
Right.
the little drawings and sketches and recommendations. And again, I have no inside information on what Marriott's doing. I think they may be doing this as a proof of concept to say, okay, look we bought this thing, 1,000-room property, $255 million. We spent this much on the transfer, and here are the results, right?
Yeah.
So it may just be a case study. And if you're Marriott and you're that large, $255 million to have a good case study. Yeah. On the Sheraton brand.
When you're the second largest hotel chain in the world, I mean, it makes sense.
Ooh! I think Marriott's dropped their sponsorship of the program for that comment as well.
Isn't Wyndham bigger now with La Quinta?
Oh well, wait. How are you counting this on revenue? On share valuation, numbers of Wyndham's always been bigger. They've always been bigger. I think
So they're the largest, right? They're 9,000 locations.
Marriott's but I don't think Marriott even with
right.
Did they pass Wyndham when they did the Starwood thing? They actually
because La Quinta was La Quinta was over 1,000 properties. So.
Oh no, I know. Oh no, I know for Wyndham, but did Marriott actually pass Wyndham when they got Starwood? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll go check that. But anyway, I don't know. I think they're doing a proof of concept. I mean, they may need to do this with a Westin. They may need to do this.
I don't know. Westin's never really lost its way like Sheraton has. I thought Westin was a pretty consistent brand throughout its whole. Like you go into a Westin, you don't even have to know it's a Westin. You look around.
Westin's pretty Westin.
Yeah.
But again, it's
Sheraton had a problem historically. It's had multiple identity crises in its history. They did that one big
brand consistency where they've had product all over the place.
Hustle where they pushed a bunch of Sheratons down to 4 points.
Right, which created 4 points.
No, 4 points was around before then.
Were they?
Yeah, 4 points. They weren't big. And actually, a couple of the 4 points came up and became Sheratons. That's why I know they were around then, because in that tussle there was a little bit of rejiggering.
So the 4 points brand wasn't just crappy Sheratons,
right?
Wow.
Yeah, because some of them
I didn't realize that. I thought that was the genesis of the brand.
No, I think Sheraton ended up a lot like what DoubleTree is to Hilton, which is the entry point into the system.
Which is so sad because DoubleTree was a good little brand before. Before they got before it was acquired and everything like that. And just
no, you're right.
In Houston, they had two. I'm sorry. Those were those guest quarters? I always confuse guest quarters and DoubleTree. I think they had
Warm Cookies.
Yeah,
Warm Cookies.
Guest quarters was a little kind of quasi
anyway,
sweet type thing that disappeared.
I think
still maybe it's more of Marriott sorting out the brands, like the overlap of Renaissances with Westins with these, I mean this
Renaissance has always had me completely confused because you go to one like the one in Paris it is a stunning luxury hotel.
Not exactly like the 600-room convention property in Schaumburg, Illinois.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, how are these how are they the same? How is this possible that
because owners are paying fees to be affiliated with the brand. That is the common denominator. That's it. Nothing else.
Tim says he did not blow us off. Webinar Jam booted him and wouldn't let him back in.
I think it's he made the tinfoil hat comment. And
which, by the way, since we are
him.
sailing into one, why don't we start to run down the show?
I thought there was one that was kind of interesting. The UK Competition Authority, again, raising some issues with enforcement against not just hotel booking sites, but I think this is how a lot of stuff gets booked everywhere, right? And again, they're raising kind of ethical issues. Are customers being, or are guests being misled by some of the practices, and some of them are relatively common.
I gotta be honest with you. Like when you put out a rate that you say is the lowest price guaranteed, but you're not disclosing that there are qualified rates that are better prices than that rate. Right. I don't know how that's not been taken up as an issue. I always wondered that. And when you had the brands do the lowest rate for joining the loyalty program, but then you blew it open and AAA had a lower rate, like how am I like? Am I just so hypersensitive to bullshit that like this stuff makes me go, how did this happen? Like, how can you say this here, but literally have a lower rate available right below it? Right. And you can't say that the rate for the loyalty club was a unqualified rate because you had to be a loyalty member in order to qualify for it. So are you saying AAA members are more valuable to you as a hotel than your own loyalty program? Like, what are you saying? Like, what is happening here?
But that's the fallacy of the whole thing of confusing loyalty with rewards and discounts and baiting people in through a discounted rate, and confusing that with them being loyal. I mean, it just has nothing to do.
Why would they be loyal if in the same exact screen that you're trying to dupe them, you mistakenly forgot to cover up the fact that AAA and AARP and some of these other very easily, added rates are right on the same screen, but you actually use the wording, a lower price cannot be found online. Well, unless you hit expand. And then there's your lower price.
And for most of these hotel groups, when you check AAA, they don't check your card. There's no validation. There's no, I mean, that is possible. You can do that. I mean, AAA provides an API to be able to validate your number to be able to go do things. None of them do it. The same with AARP, right? For senior rates, it's just like, check the box. Hey, I saved X.
But here's the thing, like, you want to talk about the ethical question of all of this is by calling the loyalty rate, the direct booking rate, the lowest rate, and the fact that it's not an unqualified rate, that's should you not have to disclose that the hotel may have rates that are better if you're part of certain corporations, or if you're like, should you not have to disclose that? Just kidding.
They probably have it in a footnote somewhere.
This is a really good rate for people who came in through the path that you came into and bit on this type of situation. However, there's a lot of other situations where you could actually get a better rate with this hotel.
Well, and we're probably driven there by the claim that you would receive discounts up to 10%, which are really more, the classic up to, which it's normally, from what I've seen, about 2%. Sometimes I'll go a little deeper. But again, they're also playing around with the advanced purchase on it too, right? So they'll say, you can save 15%
qualified rate. So should they not have to disclose that, actually, if we're getting out of the world of unqualified rate and getting into qualified rate, like, should we not have to disclose that, oh, by the way, if you went through this UK tour company, the rate plan is actually 50% less than this.
But if the dream of the blockchain comes true, that will all be transparent, and all the rates everywhere, and what's being sold and who booked what will all be just right there, Ed.
And I don't understand why hotels want that, because what I'm actually poking at is that in their own presentation of these things, there's some pretty deceptive.
It is. Yeah, well, and the Competition and Markets Authority, and we should really have done this with Stuart, so he could have the whole British thing, and he could, put on his top hat and his monocle, and
and also let him take the ethical high road, and let me pick apart the
exactly.
Right. They're just trying to make things work. Do the best
they
can.
They are looking at four things, which some of them I do have problems with. Search results. how hotels are ranked, for example, to what extent they're influenced by factors not relevant to the customer's requirements, such as the commission. And it's kind of like, wait a second.
That's incredibly relevant because that customer may not have found that site if that site had not invested the correct amount of money to find that customer to then present them.
Right.
Yeah, like
well, and
I feel like if I was the lawyer on
how
that
you
one,
put it, how you push
Easily.
this is a sponsored listing up to the top. Now again, and that is their default rank. Now the good ones who are good at it, like the Bookings and the Expedias, they are taking it into account. But in some cases, they were kind of arbitrarily pushing these guys to the top. But I use Vegas as an example. The South Strip Travel Lodge could be giving them a 50% commission or something, but that may not push them above, whatever.
It's a weighted algorithm.
Right, exactly. And it's weighted on the length of stay, the ADR, all of that. I mean,
how many times a year the hotel has given them inventory during peak time.
All those. Yeah, you're a good partner. Yeah.
Because of that, like, I don't think they're going to have an anti-competitive issue because it actually is a fairly advanced approach to the merchandising of the platform.
Well, but you have to remember that the competition, or whatever they called it before, the Competition Markets Authority, they were the ones who came out with rate parity, thanks to Dorian Harris at Scoosh, who came up with this completely false argument, right, that there was all this collusion between hotels and OTAs to beat down these guys, when he just had the business model of revealing qualified rates, which were to be used in packages or opaquely or whatever, and to then go sell them on a retail basis. He got that whole rate parity thing started with this authority. So these guys will make laws and changes without digging down into the reality, which is pretty scary. The other one, pressure selling, claims about how many people are looking at the same room, how many are left, how long the price is available, all these things, because they will say this hotel's been booked 28 times, but it's like, not over the dates you're looking at, though. That's a little nuanced sort of thing. So,
I think that's less, like, I think there could be some guidance added to that area. Like, you shouldn't say only one room left at this price when that's not true.
Right. Yeah. Well, but again, it may be in their block of their availability, and this is the whole.
No. There's
saying they're sold out versus it may be available at the hotel, right?
Right, but here's the thing: like, a little bit of guidance in that area would create some consistency to how it's presented, which then means you can understand what's going on when you see it.
Right. Yeah. And that one's a little tricky. The next one is the discount claims. And this is where you start getting into the strike through prices, right? And again,
I'll tell you a fun story about that. So strike through pricing, at Easy Yield, we built the ability to handle that for hotels. The number one request that hotels had was they actually wanted it to be false. So they wanted the system to automatically raise the net rate high enough so that when the strike through hit, it took them to the price that they were already at. And do you know what my response was every time that, like, I actually had a rule that any customer who requested it to the support center, it gets bubbled up to me and I'll handle the phone call. Right. And I would personally call the client and say, no, we will not be doing that. Because that is deceptive and that will bite you, and you should not do that. And I will not build that into my platform to make it easier for you to do that.
For you to cheat, yeah.
And I would have that call, I kid you not, once a week.
Yeah.
Because a hotel saying, hey, I want to do the strike through, but I don't want a discount. Like, I wanted to just mathematically bump it up high enough and do this, and it's like, well, then do that yourself, because I'm not building technology to do that.
Yep. Go build in a bunch of rate tiers that aren't available and weren't, and that sort of thing. So so that's the and I've got a problem with what Hotwire does. I mean, Hotwire all the time, and again, because their inventory is getting squeezed like crazy. They're out there saying, hey, here's a strike through of 278 and it's 114. But when you look through the fine print, it goes, well, that is for that type of hotel, right? So it's a 3-star hotel, maybe in that neighborhood over the last whatever months that was kind of a typical retail. And it's like, that's not this hotel. A strike through should be, This was the price for those dates. It was here.
Yep.
Now it's here. And that whole context is you need the context, I guess, is the bottom line. And then my personal favorite, the hidden charges to which sites include costs in the price. They first show customers whether people are later faced with unexpected fees. Now, this says such as taxes or booking fees. They didn't go to the resort fees, right?
Functionally, you have sites, especially when you get into like areas that have VAT at play.
Yep.
You have sites that purposefully do not include VAT in the search rate, but do add it in once you're past the a certain point of return. Return.
Yeah, we're in that case where they're extracting out the tax to try to do it. Where that's not even. Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, how difficult it was for us to build the math equation to be able to give the hotel the ability to put in a single consumer-facing price and then be able to correctly calculate what the net rate should be for this website that did rates inclusive of VAT and wrongfully marked up VAT, this site that handled VAT correctly and did have VAT inclusive but did not mark up VAT, or this site that actually had rates exclusive of VAT but actually still marked up over VAT to have that VIG added to it for them. The math equations, it took us forever to figure out how to do it because the handling of VAT on across some of these channels was
it's
insane.
Crazy. Yeah, the same with just regular retail. It's all over the board, right? I mean, because they'll give you now. These guys are saying here's the total price. Well, that's the tax exclusive. It excludes the resort fee, and again, all these things, the resort fees are all in there just to undermine. Basically to undermine price shopping. I mean, that was the genesis of it. That is why they exist. They're all taxed pretty much unless you have a really, really stupid jurisdiction, local jurisdiction. They're all taxed as against room occupancy tax. And again, I was on a call with, I think it was 26 attorney generals who think that's wrong, but it takes the Federal Trade Commission to have the gumption to go say, let's go do this.
There's been a resurgence of some like rethinking on the resort fee, and there have been a couple of hotels that I've come across that their approach to the resort fee has actually been to like give things that are incredibly popular amongst their guests.
Yes, that's
like
true.
As part of that resort fee. I think the problem is when you go to a hotel and pay $40 to park, you pay for water in your room, you don't use the gym, you know, you pay for Wi-Fi, and then you get hit with a $12 a night resort fee and you're just like, seriously. Whereas, you know, like there's a hotel that we're working with that just recently, they have a $30 a night resort fee, but that includes valet parking with unlimited in and out. That includes really high speed Wi-Fi. It includes multiple bottles of water a day to the room.
Yeah, but if everybody gets those, right? It's you start going, it's part of the fee, but that's just what you offer.
But at least in this case,
you're getting something,
actually giving something of real value, right?
Yeah, but
unlimited in-out valet is really expensive in a lot of these hotel markets.
Absolutely, but again, if everybody's getting charged the resort fee,
part of the rate?
They don't have. That's I always fall back on that.
All right, hey, I do have to go.
No, and I stayed at the District Hotel in New York this past week. They gave 2 free drinks in the bar. They have a little bar restaurant type thing, which I thought was great, right? And again, they associated it with the resort fee, and so it was like, you know what? That's good. I had more of a feeling that I wasn't paying for it.
Alcohol does soften the blow.
Yeah.
All right, I have to go, Robert. I'm sorry, or I will not get to eat lunch today. So.
Well, this is good. This is part of your diet. Where can people find you before
people can find me at Flip2 or on social media, Edward St. Onge. And Robert, where can people find you?
At Robert K. Cole on social media or at rockcheetah.com.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Stuart is a very ethical person who was playing devil's advocate, just in case you didn't pick up on that. I'm giving full disclosure.
Are you sure about that, Ed? Really? Are we still on the air? Are you sure? Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Great. That's what Stuart gets for leaving early. He gets
That's right.
abused, right?
That's
People
right.
know the rules. Okay, bye.
Bye.